It's time for the Double Stop with Brian Sword. Welcome to the Double Stop. I'm Brian Sword. This week on the show, I have guitarist Darren Housholder. Darren was part of the later wave of Shrapnel shredders. He came out in the early 90s, around the same time as Joey Tafoya, who I've had on the show in the past. Darren did 3 records for Shrapnel throughout the 90s and flirted with a bunch of big bands, but it never quite worked out for him. So this week, I'm really happy to share his story and get a good look at the state of shred in the 90s. And he's got a few unexpected stories, like a good one with David Lee Roth. So let's jump right to it. This is Darren Housholder.
I grew up in the suburbs of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My family's musical history. Well, I have 2 older sisters, younger brother. My oldest sister played piano, and my second sister also played piano. But they were sort of forced to practice. You know, we bought the piece of furniture, you know, and their interest waned, but they had to practice half an hour every day. What that means to me is that I could tinker around on the piano, but I didn't begin playing the guitar until right before my 15th birthday. And when I started, it was that, we'll buy you this guitar, but if you do like your sisters did, you got to pay us back.
Right.
You know, obviously I didn't have to pay them back.
So 15, that's on the later side, not terribly late, but what was it that made you want to play it when you were 15?
I played sports from the age of 5 till about 15, and having 2 older sisters, it wasn't like they turned me on to Jimi Hendrix and Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, Ted Nugent, you know. This is 1980, okay? I hadn't heard Van Halen. The first Van Halen I heard was Women and Children First. I heard And the Cradle Will Rock. Okay, so I'm 13 in 1978. I didn't hear Eruption. You know, I didn't get to hear I'm the One on Fire. I didn't hear any of that stuff, man. So it took a while till my friend who had older brothers, and being at his house, I would hear the music they'd play, and I was like, oh fuck, this Aerosmith's great, man. I love this. What is this? You know.
What kind of stuff were you hearing instead?
Well, my mom listened to country music.
Right.
Look, I remember playing drums on a coffee table to Born to Be Wild when I was 5. I got a Partridge Family drum kit once for Christmas that lasted a month or 2 till I poked holes in the heads. There's a Christmas picture of me when I was 2 getting a classic guitar. I'm a product of the 60s, so 60s and 70s and music and all that's going on. My sisters listened to anything from Elton John to Billy Joel, but not rock that made me just want to go, what the fuck is that,
Yeah. So when you're 15, you discover really Eddie. So how deep did you go and how quick?
Quick. I immediately made it I got a guitar. The first month, I went to the music store, got the guitar lessons with the guy at the store. He wanted me to learn Mary Had a Little Lamb and all this bullshit on an acoustic guitar, reading. Wanted me to read. And after a month, I stuck it out. But I come across a friend who had a guitar teacher that was, recent high school graduate playing in the rock bands, and his name was Tom Smith, I believe, John Smith or Tom Smith. But this guy showed me the licks I wanted to learn. This guy showed me the pentatonic scales, the modal scales. Right away, I got this gift of not only learning everything I wanted to learn, but learning the stuff that you really should learn at that level, And I just played from the time I got home from school till I went to bed. So I was playing 4 to 5 hours a day throughout 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, you know?
And when did you get your first band?
Like 11th grade. So I've been playing like a year, a little more than a
Mm-hmm.
year. And that same kid I told you about, Dwayne Davis, that, had been playing guitar longer than I. My buddy, Martin, that played bass, and Nazier was a drum major in the band and the drum thing in school. And we put a band together, and we played. And that's kind of what songs did we play in those days, man? We were playing Black Sabbath, Rush, Led Zeppelin, anything, anything that wasn't too complicated, Living After Midnight was the easiest rock song ever written, and a good one.
Yeah.
And then Working Man from Rush, and of course Leonard Skinner. We're playing. We played Freebird. We really did. And we didn't have to have it requested. We just went into it.
Yeah.
And that was typical of like 1981, 82. And by the time senior year in high school, we played the pep rally for our like high school homecoming game. I didn't go to the game. I didn't give a fuck about sports at that point. But we rocked the gymnasium in front of 1,200 students, and we played "Eye of the Tiger," "We Will Rock You," and "Crazy Train."
Nice. That must have been a thrill to play that in front of that big a crowd when you're that age.
Yeah, when those songs were relevant.
Of course.
They weren't classic rock at that point. They were the current songs.
Was there a big backyard party scene at that point?
Man, I live near Pasadena, and I go over to Pasadena, know people, the Van Halen backyard parties. God, not only do I have not been to those Van Halen parties, but, we did play some things like that. And I wish I could say we had a ton of them, but we were typically, because, it was cold in Pennsylvania, and we'd play in garage parties with like kerosene heaters and kegs of beer and drunks falling into your guitar amp. We play like in the summertime. I remember playing like on a flatbed out in the middle of a cornfield with generators, a couple little mini Woodstocks. But we also like we were hustling young kids that would play the pool hall, and we'd set up a stage on top of the pool tables, like put boards on top of them and make stages and sell tickets. And we built a scaffolding in our local little movie theater, so in front of the screen we had a legit stage. And shoot, man, I mean in those days, man. And I've just recently seen this picture in front of us. The local Burger King opened, right? We played the grand opening of Burger King, and we were paid in hamburgers and French fries. We would play anything, any occasion, like a 4th of July thing. Man, that was great. Because the whole town, all the people. But yeah, we were definitely like the guys that were doing it.
So you finish your high school kind of age. When did you decide you're gonna take it seriously? Like obviously you dove right in, but in terms of your career.
Well, I wanted to get out of Pennsylvania, and the guidance counselors told me that you couldn't go to school for guitar, unless you went to Juilliard. I've been playing classical guitar. One thing I did do is that I learned an hour of classical guitar repertoire, and I played the Pittsburgh Arts Festival when I was 18, and I played an hour of memorized classical guitar. And, there's a later part to that story. It's interesting, but, I wasn't college material is what they told me, and so I didn't know what to do. So what I did do is that I set out to be a self-taught, college-educated musician at home. So I went to the library. There's a particular book called The Guitar Handbook by the author is Ralph Denyer. The Guitar Handbook had all of this stuff with the theory and the chord pattern, scale things, the theory behind it, intervals, how chords and modes and all these things. Man, I learned so much, and I basically would start my day at 8 a.m. All right, I'd take a little break for lunch. I think I did a couple of sit-ups or push-ups. Probably smoked a hit of weed, and I would do another 4 hours, and I would have an 8-hour day in by dinner time, and then I would teach music at night. So it'd be another 3 or 4 hours, and then I'd play like just sitting around the living room, until bedtime. So I'd play, 12, 14-hour days, every day. I would go probably a Monday through a Friday without even stepping outside, and after 4 months of doing that, I got a job and worked full time and played. I wrote music on my lunch break on manuscript and went home and tried to play it. And I did self-taught, worked through, jobs and playing as much as possible. And then the following September, I entered Berklee College.
And how was that audition process?
Well, when I went to Berklee, I had sent cassette tapes and stuff, and we had cassettes back then. And I got, it was cool, man, because my family didn't have any college fund for me. I got a Al Di Meola partial scholarship and a jazz master's incentive award or something. So I got what it was probably a couple $1,000s a year. That helped. But when I went to Berklee, being a rock guitar player, I was in Harmony 3 first semester. The guitar players were in Harmony 1. I was in the harmony class with horn players and piano players and jazz guys. Now I thought I could read because I'd worked on it, and I thought I knew what jazz. I thought jazz was Jeff Beck. I thought jazz was like that fusion cool stuff. I had no clue that Charlie Parker and John Coltrane, I had no fucking idea those people existed. But I tested in these higher classes. I was in Reading Lab 1, Chord Lab 1, but I did Reading Lab 1 and 2 the first semester, and 3 and 4 the second semester. So I doubled down, I got in there and I just went for it hard. Here's a story on the classical guitar, which I really, really love. I was just playing before you called, and I love playing the nylon string. Not that I'm great at it, but I love it, So I'm having lunch at the Berklee dorms one day, and with this Japanese student, and we're talking in classical guitar, and he studied in Washington, D.C. under this teacher. And so I say, hey, come on up to my dorm room. Let's play a little bit. And this guy took my guitar and played like Andre Segovia. I put my guitar in the case. Actually, I sold the guitar, and I stopped playing classical guitar.
Wow.
Here it was, I memorized an hour's worth of music, but I got to Berklee, and I thought I was the hot shit. Everybody was the hot shit, And I got put in my place. And, what I did do is that I realized that, man, I need to focus on this thing that I can get really good at. I want to be diverse and have all these styles. But really what I wanted to do was I wanted to take Yngwie Malmsteen, Eddie Van Halen. At this point, we're just starting to hear Steve Vai at this point. I wanted to do that, and I wanted to incorporate the jazz stuff and the classical. So what I was doing was I was learning from John Coltrane and Charlie Parker, the Charlie Parker Omni book. It's his transcriptions, and you have to know how to read music to learn this stuff. But anyway, I was taking licks off of that, and then what I was doing with Yngwie, I was added some transcriptions. Being in Berklee, there was the classes and the core and all that, but there were 700 guitar students that all had something to offer each other. And what I got turned on to when I was there was equal, to what the instruction was. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, because this is pictured now. I went there from 84 to 88. Tablature had just emerged, and one of the teachers turned me on to Young Guitar, the Japanese guitar magazine, and they had a transcription of Yngwie Malmsteen's Far Beyond the Sun. And I got that. We would record a cassette into a double speed cassette, like a 4-track recorder, ran on double speed. And then when you took that cassette and put it into a normal cassette, it would play at half speed.
Nice. That's like putting your finger to slow down a record or something.
Yeah, dude. I mean, they have machines that do this and bring the pitch up. The pitch would be an octave lower. So I'd have a normal pitch on the one side, the octave lower, half speed on the other, and the transcription. I mean, all you got to do is just take it one note at a time, right?
Yeah. It still has a lot of notes.
3 million notes. There's a lot of notes. But I learned Far Beyond the Sun, note for note. It took me, 4 months. But I was learning the harmony, ear training, jazz chords, how to do bebop, and I was learning from transcriptions and all this stuff at the same time. So needless to say, like Friday nights and Saturday nights, and everyone was drinking and partying. I was kind of a nerd. I'd be in the practice rooms, and I just was woodshedding like crazy. So I went for it, and then, what happened along the way in Berkeley, then I started playing recitals. So I'd work up a set of Far Beyond the Sun, the Attitude Song. I got YRO from Paul Gilbert's Racer X, like his first one. YRO, Ingve ripoff, and it's this like Paganini thing in the middle. See, I was learning that stuff, and then I would go and play a recital. And I did 4 recitals. I called them rock in a jazz place. Because at Berkeley it was a jazz place. Make no mistake. At Berkeley, you have ratings. There's 4 numbers that are your ability to read, jazz, your ability to improvise over the jazz, your ability to do these things. There's 4 numbers, right? I got as high as 3s. Pat Metheny got 9s, right? And so you go to jam with somebody, and they may ask you what your ratings are. You know what I mean? You meet them at lunch, and they're going to determine whether you're good enough to play with them. But dude, there was guys like, my 3rd year or my 4th year. It was my 4th year. My 4th year when I was there. I mean, the Dream Theater guys were there. John Petrucci, John Mayung, Mike Portney. Those guys are there. You know what their ratings were? I don't even think they went to they didn't give a shit. Their ratings might have been 1s.
Oh, right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Those guys are monsters, right?
Yeah.
And but in the Berkeley dorms, we had JD, bass player from Zakk Wylde's Black Label. Yep. We had Brian Tichy.
Yeah, I interviewed him.
I played a recital with Brian. He was a shredding guitar player, and he'd hit me up for the Ingve lick or whatever, and I was like, dude, fucking stop playing the guitar, man. You're too good, man. You're embarrassing your own house, man. Because he just did it as sort of like a little hobby, and he was better than a lot of the guys there. But yeah, there's some guys like that. William Calhoun went on to play drums for Living Colour. Bunch of guys.
Yeah.
But like in the dorms, I mean, there was what happened to me that's really significant is there was a guy who lived across the hall. His name's Charles, and he was in a gospel band. So yes, he was black from the South. And he played these funk chords that you hear on my Noodle Surprise track. He played some stuff, and he played it in a fluent, rhythmic way like I'd never seen anybody do before. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? So I adopted that, So that just hit a nerve, and I really pursued that funk thing, So, what I did with my first CD, I like to call it heavy metal big band, So getting that funky stuff and that jazzy stuff, it's definitely rock, And that's where, like, learning Ingve, learning Steve Vai, hearing all the Shrapnel guys, I wanted to be different than the Shrapnel. Oh, I was different. I had more than Eddie Van Halen, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Hendrix, and a jazzy thing with all those chops. But I didn't want to do anything like my third record, When in Rome. I didn't want to do the classical thing,
Well, let's start then. So you finished school. What moves did you make when you first finished?
Well, when I finished, I was asked to teach there. And so I stayed on. I taught the summer program. And I had a chance. I recorded, a bunch of stuff for student projects. So I sent a tape to Mike Varney. And then he called and put me in the spotlight, like September of '88. I'm in the Vernon Reid. Vernon Reid was on the cover.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
And that was huge. And I'll admit, man, I got the phone call and my head almost hit the ceiling. I jumped so high. You know, and because that was the dream, to record a Shrapnel record and be one of those guys. Those are my guys. You know, you had Yngwie. I mean, obviously Paul Gilbert, Vinnie Moore, Tony McAlpine. These guys are all, you know, Jason Becker, Marty Friedman. That's what I wanted to do. And then along the way of sending Mike more tapes, he said, look, I got a friend of mine, you know, Jeff Pilson. You know, as you know, the band Dokken broke up, and Jeff's looking for a guitar player. And I'm thinking, well, shoot, he's in L.A. There's fucking guitar players everywhere. You know, we can't find somebody in L.A. And Jeff called. I talked to him on the phone, and I sent him a tape or something, and he sent me his tape. And I think, I don't know if I recorded something along with it, but anyways, they decided that, hey, you know, yeah, we want you to come out and audition. So this was like 1 year later after I graduated. You know, this is, you know, the summer of '89. So I flew out to L.A. and I played with Jeff Pilson singing, Vinny Appice on drums, and this guy Michael Diamond playing bass. You know, and I got the gig. They had been auditioning guitar players in L.A. for 4 months, and here's this nobody from, you know, I was living in Boston. I got the gig, and it's like, all right, I'm moving to L.A. It's about time, you know. But that got me out here to California. Where it went from there. In short, the band was to be signed to Charisma Virgin. At the same time, Paula Abdul was the biggest act on Virgin Records. This is 1990, right? Jeff and the guys wanted to use the management company that managed Paula Abdul. Well, Charisma Virgin, they could see that this was going to be a conflict, and it's like, no way. You got to get a different management company. And so the record deal was off. Oh, shit. Come all this way. I got the big record deal. Now it's gone, you know? And what proceeded to happen was that no one else wanted to sign us. And everyone went their separate ways. And eventually, I mean, I was fired. Jeff, you know, I was vocal about, hey, if I can't be part of the writing process, what's the point, you know? I mean, I'm just like, I'm eager to get out and play. He didn't want to play any gigs. You know, I told him what I thought about the music he was writing at the time. He thought I was an asshole. And so, you know, and we're cool now, you know.
Yeah.
But, I mean, dude, so I first moved to L.A. Lynch Mob releases, you know, Wicked Sensation or whatever, which is still one of my favorite records. And George Lynch is one of my heroes. And the one gig we did play, I mean, the whole, like, Lynch Mob band's in the audience. And I'm up there just going, oh, shit, you know? You know, there's more to that story. But yeah, and unfortunately, so, you know, I get up to California, I get in the gig, get the deal falls through, I get fired. Now what am I going to do? Well, Mike Varney calls and he's like, well, why don't we do a record? Start writing. What else? You got these songs you've given me before, you know, and those songs were, you know, Stand Your Ground, Rubberneck, When the Smoke Clears, Johnny's Bop, you know. I had this Malt Shop Serenade, this crazy two-hand guitar solo thing. And so I wrote a few more tracks, and he's like, okay, let's ready, let's go do it. So I recorded my first CD with Ray Luzier on drums and a guy named Andre Barry on bass. And that's when I met Ray. I met Ray Luzier like 1991. From Mike Varney.
And how did you meet him?
Here's a good story. This is a rock starian story. So at the time, like, I'm willing to be Mike Varney's gopher boy. Whatever Mike Varney wants, if he says, we need an amp up here at Goodnight LA Studio, can you drive us up your Laney amp you have? Sure, Mike, anything. So I grab my amp and I jump in I'm driving one of these Suzuki Semi Jeeps, right? The ones that tip over, you know. So I'm driving up on the freeway, and the fucking engine just stops. Somehow I get off the freeway, and I get into an underpass, and my transmission had been blown or whatever. And I don't have a cell phone. It's 1991 or 2 or whatever, right? And so I get someplace and I call, and so he goes, "Oh, I'll send somebody to grab the amp." Well, the guy who came to get the amp was Ray Levere.
Ah.
And that's where we met under a bridge. And I think we talked for a few minutes, and he's a drummer and guitar player. We're both from Pittsburgh area, and we hit it off. And then it was arrangements made, he'd play, Barney's trying to piece guys together, and Ray had already done like 9.0 at that point. And obviously just a monster. And Ray was the guy that I recorded all my stuff on 4-track, and given him the tapes with me playing the drum machine. I played the bass, all the guitars. I did all the instruments, and then we would go and woodshed it in the studio together every day. Well, not every day, but we had a regular schedule to build it, And Ray was just phenomenal. And so I've spent hours and hours in practice rooms, like the basics with Ray, And I just love the guy, the most. He's just incredible. And then, Andre Berry, the bass player, was kind of brought in later. Can Billy Sheehan do this record? No, he's busy, or we can't afford him, or whatever. And so, an L.A. Awesome bass player, this guy Andre, he came in and did the bass tracks, and he didn't have the time to rehearse with us. But so we went and recorded the record, and recorded and mixed, finished in 7 days.
I've talked to a lot of Shrapnel guys, and that seems like a similar story back then, but it was always in, a good studio, but you just had a small window. Was that the case here? Yes.
It's a good studio. The engineer producer guy had worked with Madonna. He had a legit studio. And the studio's in Burbank, which is where I live now. And at the time, I didn't even know Burbank. I didn't even know where I was. I was just way over on the other side of the valley. It was kind of funny. Yeah, man, we did, 10 tracks of drums in one day. I mean, and you hear that stuff. I mean, that's a fucking lot, man. That's like running a couple of marathons in a day. And then the next day was bass and some rhythm guitars. And then it was just, loads of guitars. And then when it came to solos, I'd do like all the lead tracks for a couple of songs in one day. And literally by the 7th day, I'll have tendonitis in my guitar hand from squeezing the guitar neck and just playing really, really hard for like the whole entire day and night for 7 days straight. Literally, like when we were mixing the record, I had my hand in we mixed the record there. Barney didn't like it. I went up to Sebastopol, the Prairie Sun, and literally had like my hand in a sling. It's like I was like a wounded soldier. And yeah, I just blew out the knuckle of my thumb. When my thumbs are like double jointed now and I just was digging in too hard. I was just banging my foot on the floor, digging in, locking in, it was the greatest, But that's the story there. How the thing is recorded. I think I broke a couple of whammy bars where you dive bomb, the bar would break off inside the bridge, and then you'd take it apart, get some, and then all kind of like stories of just like things. They don't just go the way you want them to go, and you just, But yeah, so that's how the first record went down.
And how was the response to that? Because that's end of 92, I think that came out.
Well, here's the thing about 1992. We had the LA riots. Actually, when I just finished my record, we had the LA riots. So that might have been a sign of what was going to happen. I don't know. And then what we also had in 92 was, guess what? A little band called Nirvana. And the record was called Never Mind Darren Housholder or anyone who sounds like him. Never mind Shrapnel records.
Exactly.
Never mind shots. Never mind guys who wash their hair. Never mind. Oh, fuck. It was a great timing. And so there was really no U.S. guitar magazines with any promo at all, I didn't get the full-page guitar ads like the other guys did. I signed up for Washburn right when the album cover was shot, but I used I used a wood guitar. It's like my Frankenstein guitar. This is a guitar I bought in the dorms that it was a 1980 Charvel, like those old Charvel bodies that all of us love. It's one of those. It had a guitar neck on it that I broke, and I loved this guitar neck. It was scalloped. So I went and bought a Warmoth guitar neck and some wood files, and I took a brand new guitar neck and I scalloped the fretboard and then had it put on. So this is a wood guitar with holes in it, the scalloped fretboard, EMGs. It's just a fucking axe, right? And that's what I used to record my first record. And then I got the pretty Washburn guitar just in time for the photo shoot, thinking I'll get ads in magazines, I'll get guitar clinics. Well, what I did get to do for Washburn was play the NAMM show in front of 2,500 people. And that was phenomenal, you know. I was privileged to do some pretty cool stuff. But as far as the big promo and the guys that, the Richie Kotzens before me and stuff, I'm not saying I'm better or not as good as them. It's just the timing totally changed.
It's amazing what happened in such a small window. Because like you say, Richie Kotzen, after his first record came out, he was on the cover of Guitar magazine with Reb Beach and Nuno, Yeah. And then a couple of years later, a very different scene.
Yeah. I did get this thing in there that said guitars for the '90s, and I was in an interview with Jennifer Batten, this crazy acoustic guitar guy, Craig Chiquiso. There was Adrian Legg was his name. There's a few of us, and it was like I got to be in this like group thing. I had a few things like guitars from the '90s ? Some young guitar stuff, but it is what it is. I mean, at that point, I wanted to go out on the road and play so bad. I wanted to join a rock band. I did 3 instrumental guitar records, and all 3 of them were done as a result of trying to be in a band and it not happening. So I guess a little funny story as we trail into how I got into this band called Love Hate. Mike Varney called David Lee Roth the dream gig. This is 1990, and he doesn't like what I'm doing. He wanted to go a different direction. Well, Jason Becker was in the loop, but he was also doing this bluesy stuff, new pair of shoes or new attitude shoes, or he had a totally different swampy, totally different thing. I wasn't what he was looking for. So I got the call to join Enuff Z'nuff. I learned all their stuff. They were getting rid of Derek, the guitar player, because he was a drug addict and all that stuff. And I guess he's since died, from that disease. But I went to Chicago. I was in the band. I stayed up all night recording demos. The next day, they decided they were going to give him another shot. I was flying back home.
Wow.
A couple weeks later, I got into W.A.S.P for his Crimson Idol CD. Learned all the stuff note for note. Went to rehearsals for about a week. After a week, I had asked him over lunch, "Hey Blackie, so we're doing these Monsters of Rock shows. What do you think? What do you think about a guitar solo?" He deadpanned and he goes, "Guitar solo? Why don't you just open up the show?" Ooh, I was like, I'll incorporate the themes because it's a rock show.
Yeah.
And in 1990 or 1992 or 3, I mean, it's a rock show. You got a drum solo, you got a guitar. He was he fired me the next day.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, not going well here. I got to get out and play. And then the Love Hate thing popped up, and I was like, I liked their second record, that funky stuff. I dug it. So I went down there, and they liked me. And I'm like, fuck, okay. So I get down there again, and they're like, hey, do you want to join a band? I'm just thinking, man, I don't know. They just got dropped from the record deal. And I was like, and they said, we could here's a classic story. I go, well, yeah, I'd like to do this. And they go, well, we just got to ask you this one question. And Skid, the bass player, goes, can you wear your guitar lower? And I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, can you wear your guitar lower? And I go, yeah, I can do that. And they go, you're in. So if you've seen me play or the later stuff, you see that I wear the guitar a bit lower than the average shredder. you know, like you see a guy like a Zach Wild or whatever like that. I mean, nothing against Paul Gilbert or John, especially John Five. Those guys are great guitar players, but like I don't wear the guitar that high. And I take a lot of pride in being able to play this shit, not wearing the guitar high.
Yeah.
So in order to be a rock and roller, you got to wear the guitar like not Jimmy Page low, but you know.
That's the lesson you learned from Love Hate.
Yeah, that's a lesson. And the thing with Love Hate, man, is like we went out on the road right away. You know, I did 10 weeks on a tour bus playing 4 or 5 nights a week. Seriously, probably 5 nights a week mostly. We recorded a record, which was a killer because, you know, we did 12-hour sessions from 6 to 6. So, you know, the guitar solos were recorded at 5 in the morning. And I just hate my playing on it. But, you know, it is what it is. I got to do that. Got to go to England, tour over there, be in magazines, stage dive, you know, and just play like, I don't know, 200 shows, like pretty quick. And really get it, you know. You don't get it playing like classic rock tunes with your friends at a hotel. You get it playing rock show one night after another, you know, like military, or, you know, it's organized, there's an itinerary, you know, and being on the road and doing that. I got to do that. What I did on the 10-week tour bus is I took a 4-track. This is where Generator Man comes from. I took a 4-track, drum machine, a Rockman, and a battery operated Marshall, right? And I would just play all day. Like on the bus, we'd be driving from one town to the next. I would just play all day, and I'd record. You know, and at night I'd ask the bus driver to turn the generator on, so it'd have power. You know, so I could record. You know, that's how I come up with Generator Man. You know, hey, could you turn the generator on, man? You know. But I was writing all this stuff, hoping to make. I wanted to make songs for Love Hate, and they didn't. I was going more. This is 1993, 94. And, you know, this is where 9 Inch Nails was coming out, Ministry. And I liked that stuff. I wanted to make a Shrapnel record that had that sort of element to it. And when they wouldn't take the stuff, I went more like putting solos over it. And that's where the Generator Man and these songs came from on that CD. But what happened there was I was given a $5,000 budget. And I could spend all that in one day in the studio.
That's peanuts, especially back then. It's one thing now if you can record it in your bedroom, but
yeah, I know. But that's what I did. I took the $5,000. I bought an 8-at, a Mackie mixer, NS10 speakers, upgraded the drum machine, you know, and I bought a home recording studio. So the downside of that was I wasn't able to get like real Ray Lazier drums. And Generator Man record is, you know, I did all the demos where I programmed the drum machine for everything, played all the instruments. And so I just did that again. And, you know, it is what it is. I was able to get Ray to play drum pads on a couple tunes, get a couple of real bass players that play some real bass on a couple tunes. But otherwise, it's kind of a glorified demo. I recorded it, mixed it in my bedroom, sitting there in my underwear all day, you know, with a coffee, basically. That's what it was. But that was a growing experience that I really, at the time, was just searching to do something different, you know. And I'm proud of the music, man, because all of those tracks are pieces of music that I've constructed. You know, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to just put something, I'm going to improvise some leads over it. I was trying to make soundscape music, you know. Not the most received record. It's probably in the lower 10 of all Shrapnel records ever made. I don't know. But that's where I was at the time, you know. So that brings us up to 94. And then from there, you know, like I put the Freak Power Ticket band together with Ray on drums, Sean Daly on vocal, a couple bass players. We ended up making a Freak Power Ticket CD. We recorded 30 songs, went into 10 for a CD. And then along the way, you know, I needed to go get a job. I didn't want to get a job. Music lessons weren't paying me enough. And so Mike offered me some money to do another record, but he would have to have the approval of like the Japanese distributors and the European distributors. And I'm like, and they didn't like what I was doing. So I was like, all right, when in Rome, give them what they want. So I have this classical guitar book, and I have these classical pieces that I took and made it into like a heavy metal, that's what symphonic aggression is, I took Chopin Prelude Number 4, and it's to be played espresso VO. The song's called Espresso on my CD. I took Moonlight Sonata, and I made it into a song called Mayday. You may not know it, but when you people that just hear this for the first time you can hear the like I totally lifted chordal stuff, melody stuff, and chop it in and out between. But I totally used chord progressions and melodies I've lifted from these songs. But anyway, so they decided, they liked it, and then I was able to. How did I do that one? I recorded this record on the cheap. We went into, since I had an ADAT, we went into a studio that had 3 ADATs, recorded the drums in one day, and then I was able to record everything else at my house, and then go into that studio at the end and mix it. So I got the best of both worlds. I was able to get real drums and real bass and all that stuff, in a real, like, quote unquote home. It was a home studio, but it was still, real instruments. And then the money I got, I was able to kind of live off of and stave off like getting a real job, And that was in '95, and that was Symphonic Aggression. And it's a CD I'm proud of because I was able to take, what Ingve did on that first CD, that Black Star or whatever, Rising Force. Black Star is one of the songs, but he took like classical stuff and made it. That was just wonderful, cool stuff. And I don't know, hear too many other guys have done that. But I highly recommend it, and that's where I'm at right now. Even this morning, I've just gone. I got writer's block. I could just take one of these pieces and just take my pencil and start organizing chords and melody thing, and then put a drum beat, and then boom, you got something. Go from there.
So you're talking. So this is '95. This comes out where it's, the lowest point. I'd say, give it another year or two, it starts coming back a little bit. At least other markets start emerging, and people can start carving out careers. So was it at that point that you kind of walked away from music for a while, at least professionally?
Yeah, exactly. Got the word that I was, going to be a dad. I was already, with my wife for, 12 years. We had gotten married, and I'm in my late 20s, and I'm hitting about 30. Yeah, I'm hitting 30 years old, and like, okay, so I went and got a morning job selling stuff on the phone. That's what I did when I was in college. I'd work these telemarketing jobs, and what that experience led me to do was to get a telemarketing job, not have to cut my hair or work at night or weekends, and still do the guitar. I still taught many guitar lessons, but just not enough. If I'd had 40 hours a week guitar lessons, that'd have been great. But what it led me to do was to get a job and have our kid Dorian. Dorian. I got Dorian, Phrygian, and Lydian. They're all my kids. No, Dorian, Damon, Devin. But Dorian was the name picked out, long before he was born. And it's cool. But how this part of the story goes is that worked a phone job, and within like 2 years, I bought a house, quit the job, started my own business. And so, I literally bought a house. I qualified to be able to buy a house, and then 6 months later, I quit the job, started my own business on a credit card out of my garage, which was 18 years ago. I have a successful business now. I do, I'm in a bigger house. I have more kids. But, life happened, and I had to, I was hanging on to the music for a couple more years after I got going with my business. And it just, at this point, it was like Ray had joined David Lee Roth, you know. I went over to David Lee Roth's house twice. See, John Five was the guitar player for that Slam Dunk record. And there was another kid that he had some illness or something. And this is the kid that got Ray to go in and ended up being an audition. The kid, I think he got fired or he left the band. And then John Five left the band and went to Marilyn Manson, and then they didn't have a guitar player. So this is the cool part of my story is that, I was able to send over a cassette tape, and he liked it, and I went over to Dave's house, just me and him. And it was awesome. And he gave me, Dave gave me Cactology. It's a band that had Carmine Appice and Cactus, they're called, from the early 70s. And it just, and Cactus, and dude, so I'm standing there with David Lee Roth, and he goes, check out this tune right here, and it's boom, boom, tsh, ba, bam, bam, bam. And I'm like, that's fucking Eruption. He goes, yeah. He goes, yeah, listen to this. And so he was showing me like the secret sauce, like where Van Halen got their stuff. Slapping me on the back. I'm in like glory. Like I'm hanging with just me and Dave.
Yeah.
It's not a meet and greet fan thing. It's just me and him, And he's turning me on all this stuff. And, of course I'm like over the moon excited. I wrote some more music and he liked it. And then, and the story was that I went back to his house again, and then he walks me to my truck, and I got a kid, I started my business. And he just sort of looked at me and he's just like, how's the family doing? I'm like, oh, yeah, we're doing well. Hey, thanks, Dave, Yeah, we'll talk later. That's the last I ever spoke with him. Well, two things happened. One, he's a guy, he wants all his bandmates to be bachelors, He wants to party and women and all this stuff. Bart Walsh had hit him up. It had gotten in through to him. So he went from wanting to write a new record to playing old Van Halen songs and going out on the road doing old Van Halen. So the blessing of that was if I had joined, I don't know, if I had joined Dave, I would have quit my business, which has been a godsend for me and my family, I built up a pretty good little empire. And I may have just left it to the side of the road, been in David Lee Roth, and who knows what would happen later. But the really, unless you're somebody that's in a major band like Korn or whatever, it's a struggle, to make make money and support a family and have a good life. And at that point, man, I was like, every waking moment is about making it in music, but it's no longer just about me anymore, And I have this business, and the blessing was that I didn't get the gig, The curse is that it leaves me hungry, and it's taken me to around 2007, 2010, right now today, to really, reconnect. I've got a lot of music in my head. My chops are up. I have a YouTube channel that I'm going to start flooding with play along. This is how I did Noodle Surprise. I'm going to play the whole thing to a backing track, and break down like the harmony thing, the rhythm thing, what I was doing here. Here's the technique. Here's this, and just give all my secrets away. Just because I want to connect with people, I want to interact with people. I just want to be part of the guitar community again. Because I've been out. In 2010, what happened was 2007. So this is like, I retired from music in 99. 2007, Love Hate said, we're going to play in England. Do you want to go? Sure. So we did 2007, 2008, 2009, like 2-week tours. That was that was awesome. And going to England and playing these shows, it was great, man. But it slowly got me from like, I'd play every once in a while to, playing. It took me a while to get my chops up, man. It took me a while to lose my fat face and, but to get back into rock star shape, like, you're playing and you're just, in a band like Love Hate, if you know what Love Hate's like, like a Chili Peppers band. It's on. You're playing. No one's standing around. It's on. And that's the thing that was really so great, that I got to get into a band that was like a hard-working band. And then, by 2010, I got two guys together. We played stuff from my CDs, and I can sing Hendrix songs. I like to pick the Hendrix songs that not everybody does, like Stone Free, Crosstown Traffic, Spanish Castle Magic. I don't like to do the Fire, Purple Haze. I like to do but I put a good set together and played a bunch of shows like throughout Hollywood and stuff. And then I got just I wanted to do the next thing. I started writing, I was like writing vocal songs. And I got a ton of stuff that's like not finished, It's like one more vocal or just one more guitar track, and I just got into that whole thing where I got a whole pile of stuff not finished, if you know what I mean. It's probably a lot of us can say, for some reason I don't finish it. But I was just finding like what it is I want to do, and then now kind of where I'm at now here. I mean, throughout 2015 is one of my guitar fans. My biggest fan in the world is this guy Brian Urick in Ohio, and Brian's a guy who's got old lesson sheets. He's got like old demo tapes of songs I forgot I ever even recorded. Like it's like, where did you get this stuff, man? And he goes, "Can you transcribe Misty?" Well, Misty's a song from my first CD. It's a solo that's all jazz 4-part arpeggios, major, minor, dominant, seventh chords, sweeping, tapping. It's pretty elaborate, and I'm like, fuck, man, I haven't played that in 20-some years. Yeah, right. So anyway, long story short, as I get a half-speed recording from him, MP3 this time, not a cassette. And so I got the half-speed. I'm just like, you know what, man? Why don't you just sit down and just try one chord at a time? Well, over 6 months, I just finished it. Transcribed the whole thing out into tablature. It took a long time, but I was like, you know what? I want to do this for YouTube and for people that, hey, where did Darren ever go? Or, hey, I wanted to, and that really inspired me to go, you know what, this is what I need to do. I need to just, whether I make a new CD or play another gig, this is something I can connect with people. I go to these NAMM shows, and I know these guys that are doing all this great stuff, and I'm envious of that. I mean, I won't lie. I mean, see guys like Doug Aldridge doing stuff. He's such a great guitar player. I see John Five and Zach Wild, Steve Vai, Richie Kotzen, all these guys at this Tony McAlpine benefit. And I'm hanging with Joey Tafoya, at the gig. Now becoming a good buddy of mine, and here's a guy, Joey Tafoya, that like me, he went from the Shrapnel thing, he started his own business, became pretty successful, and he's really back out playing now.
Yeah, I've had him on the show. He's awesome.
Joey's fucking great, man. And I look at his life and I see like, hey man, here's a guy.
Very similar stories between you two.
Yeah, and it's like, and he's just kind of, I mean, yeah, you got to be very self-motivated. That's what you did in the first place. But the music is just screaming to do something. I don't know what the block is. If you walk away from the business, it'll slag, and you're afraid to. You can spread your passion around. Music's therapy for me. I play all the time. I love music. I dig into things. As far as like writing and doing new stuff, it doesn't take from everything else in your life.
Not anymore.
It's really been. I mean, it's really been a struggle. To deal with coming to terms with that and getting back to where it's flowing out again. And I don't know why I sabotaged. I got a song almost finished and I stopped. I got this thing, and I got these lyric pages upon lyric pages, and I've got cool stuff. Now I don't want to go that direction. We'll finish it anyway. You've got like 7 lyric pages, and you've got Ray drum tracks recorded, finish the damn thing. Oh, I don't know, that's what I want to do. So I'm not going to lie, it's been musically just a flip-flopping disappointment of not, and that's just where recently with transcribing that thing, which was really hard to dig back into. Because, dude, I'm playing like two-hand arpeggios, major, minor, seventh chords all over the neck. Like the 1-3 on the left hand and the 5-7 on the right hand, and string skipping and doing this old stuff and going, I can do this stuff. What I have to offer is that, I went to Berkeley. I wanted to be Eddie Van Halen and Yngwie and Steve Vai, and I went to Berkeley. And what I did is if Eddie Van Halen had gone to Berkeley, and he took what he did on one string, and he did that on all 6 strings and every position, like Guitar Method Book 1, 2, and 3 from William G. Levitt, all the arpeggio and chord structures in and out of inversions all over the neck, major minor chords, major minor dominant seventh chords. That's what I did. If you listen to Malt Shop Serenade and you listen to Misty, you hear it. Like, nobody's done that stuff. Greg Howe had this thing that he did, but it's not what I did. I have this innovation that I still have yet to really, like, totally just give away, And I feel like right now that the blessing is you get this sort of gift, and then it sort of like becomes this curse, like, oh, why didn't I get that, or why didn't I get this? Well, that's not the point. It's like you have this thing to share, and it makes you feel good when you share it. So just do that. Like, don't worry about trying to, like, make a new record or get into a magazine or anything. That's not about that, Like, that stuff will happen as a product of whatever you do. But to put that stuff out there, there's a lot of people that would be like, oh yeah, cool, how did you do that? Yeah, I've always wanted to learn that, and just so that's where I'm at now. Now I'm inspired,
I think the YouTube channel is a great idea, but it's also, you're at a time now where it's really the easiest it's ever been to just record a song and put it up on iTunes. You know what I mean? And just kind of put it out there, because it sounds to me like when you finish one, the floodgates are going to open.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's always the hardest to finish the first.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah. And, and all I really want from it is just interaction from people that will just inspire the next one.
Yeah.
There's definitely, glory and inspiration of doing that. And, all the world is a stage when you've got internet.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's, it's a new world now.
Yeah, no, I read this article about John 5 and what he does, and I was really, really inspired by it. And then mixed with this transcription offering and digging into it, and I could just go like, yeah, I like it. Because John 5 has like instructional things, performance things. He releases a new song. He'll do like a live video, and then it's a 99-cent download, and how to make money at this. And it's just like, man, that's brilliant, man. And, I don't have to be, and just doing that would give me, it just give me a lot of inspiration, and just to interact with people doing that, whether I get to play on stage with some big artists or, that'll happen. But for now, what I really want to do is just, I've been getting charts written out to hand to musicians who, if they can read or not, but at least my stuff is charted. And I've tapped a couple of different bass players and a drummer. Ray Lazier's drum tech, his name is Abel, and he is Abel. This guy can fucking play. And if you want a protege, look no further than this guy is. Like I did a few years back, just go out and play all my stuff again, put in some Hendrix and play a set. Go and play in Hollywood, At least I have guys that can do something like a live YouTube thing. I was at the Whiskey A Go-Go seeing John 5, Marty Friedman, Lynch Mob. But seeing Marty Friedman and John 5, like, here's instrumental guitar, and the place was packed. And it's like, here we are at the Whiskey A Go-Go on a Friday night, and you can't even walk in the door. There's so many people here. There are a lot of a lot of guitar fans, people that want to go and see that stuff. And man, it feels good to play live, you know?
Marty Friedman just played Vancouver. I'm in Vancouver, BC, and it is not a guitar town. And he played a big venue, and it was sold out. You know,
dude,
it was shocking.
how incredible
it was
is
shocking. Oh, he was unreal. But I don't think I've ever been so shocked in a show in Vancouver as to walk into his show and have it sold out, filled. It was amazing.
Well, you know, he's like the Ryan Seacrest of Japan.
Yeah,
He hosts
pretty much.
he hosts like the musical shows and stuff. And you know, I sat at the show at the Whiskey. First of all, like Shrapnel, talking on the phone. Never met him. And, no, I did. No, I went over to his house in the early '90s, his apartment when he was in Megadeth, and we jammed through practice amps, and he was super gracious and cool. And so that night, I snuck back to the dressing room and I said, "Hey, you know," I talked to him for a couple of minutes, and then I ended up sitting and watching the show at this table next. It was his mom, sitting next to his mom actually, and Marty just he just blew me away, like how good he is and how he connects with an audience. He just has his own unique voice, you know. He's truly incredible. I don't know that anybody else I'd rather go and see play right now than him. You know, really. I just found him to be the most interesting of all the guys out there.
And you mentioned you went to the Tony McAlpine show. How was that? The fundraising show.
It was incredible. I mean, John Five played, and you know, Zakk Wylde came out and played, you know, the same 5 pentatonic licks 20,000 times. He's great, but Zakk's got a huge bag of tricks, but he's just left them at home, and he just plays this ripping pentatonic thing over and over again. It's like, God, what happened to all that other stuff he used to do? And then Steve Vai, Steve Vai he's God on guitar. You know, he's that good. He's incredible. And then guys like Paul Gilbert, who I just love. Paul Gilbert, I mean, he's the greatest. I think, you know, Tom Morello. God, I've never seen him play. That guy's cool. What he did standing next to all these like shredding guitar players was like he held his own in his own way, and it was awesome. That guy's just, you know, he's inventive and creative. You know, just he's inventive and humorous at the same time. You know, but you know, I mean, seeing Billy Sheehan, Steve Vai, just those guys with Mike Portney on drums, rocking through like some old David Lee Roth stuff, you know, thing like Shy Boy. And then those two, you could see those two like look at each other, like you get to see the electricity, because we were sitting up in the front, and it was like, wow. That was the highlight. Seeing Billy Sheehan, Steve Vai, and Mike Portney just ripping it was just incredible.
If I can jump back quickly, just as we finish up, anything to share on the story of playing in front of George Lynch with Jeff Pilson? You said there's a whole other story there.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so check it out. So I'm going to the movies last night with my wife, and I get a text message. It's George. George is one of my idols, but we're also, you know, friends, you know, and we have each other's phone numbers. He texted me. And the text was, "What was the story? Thanks again for the jacket, Darren. Tell me again, what was the story behind that?" Okay. So I had this brown bomber jacket with a Japanese kamikaze on the back of the jacket, right? It's like handmade felt and bomber. It's like, God, look at this jacket. So in 1990, the bass player from Jeff Pilson's band gave me this jacket. Well, this jacket, George had worn this jacket in like Dawkins videos, right?
Ah, right,
when you
yeah.
see the kamikaze and the bombs and stuff like that, it looks like his guitars. And when he saw me in 1990 wearing the jacket, George goes, "Where'd you get the jacket?" And I go, "Michael gave it to me." And he goes, "He gave it to you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he gave it to me," you know? And so years and years go by, and I'm like, I gotta give this jacket to George. So I hit him up, you know, And he's like, oh, what do you want from me? Like, I think at the time I said, I just want you to come over to my house and play guitar with me for a half an hour. And so that didn't happen. And then it's really just been about, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months ago, playing the whiskey, and I called him up, and he's going to, so I take the jacket, I go to the show, and I'm going to buy a ticket, but I pull in to park my car, and guess who's right in front of me? George Lynch. And he knows shit, gets out of his car right in front of me as I'm getting out of my car. And I'm like, George, here's the jacket. I'll email you the photo. And so I give him, the jacket, and, I had my wife take a cell phone picture of us, and he's like, well, what do you want for it? I'm like, no, dude, I don't want anything for this. This is your jacket. You need to have it. This is a Hard Rock Cafe type of emblem, right? This is something you see in a case. Like, this is, and he was, what was I going to say? No, he was just saying about, that he raised a lot of hell wearing that jacket. Here was the question. And he didn't have an answer. Like, George, with all this, the kamikaze stuff on the back and all those bomber things and stuff like that, I go, what came first, the jacket or the guitar? Because he was using that, like, tiger stripe guitar. The bomber stuff, I don't know if he had Japanese bombers on his guitars in the 80s. That came without Lynch Mob in the 90s. I'm not sure. But it seemed to me like this jacket might have been that inspiration for all that, those kamikaze bombs and stuff that he has on his guitars. But I just needed to get it back to him. It felt really good to, like, here's one of my idols. Okay, now here's the funny part. I go, this is the least I can do to repay you for all the licks I've stolen from you. He starts laughing. And then he gets into this thing about, I don't know. I can't remember the joke exactly, but we had a howl over, we were laughing over it. Just the fact that, like, I'm like, George, I've stolen so many licks from you. And at the time where I joined Jeff Pilson, I had hair like George. I had a suntan like George. I was skinny and ripped up like George was. I looked like, and guys would go, oh, this is the guy you got to replace George? They'd say this to Jeff. And they go, holy shit, he even looks like him. So, I look, I stole everybody's licks. I stole his licks. I stole his look. So I owed him the jacket. That's what it was. It wasn't like I gave it back to him. I owed it to him. I was repaying my debt.
And are you still giving lessons?
No, I haven't taught a guitar lesson in years. In years and years. I wrote out some pentatonic scales for one of my son's friends the other day. I have 3 boys, none of which play the guitar. My youngest one, I was showing him, I learned the chords to Hello, the Adele song. Just like
sure.
E minor, C, G, and D. And he was into it, he was learning it. And he's got talent. Like the kid can play drums, he can play piano, he can sing, like, note for note. Like, he hears something, he can sing it right back. It's incredible. My kids went into sports and, and other things. And, but that's another thing too, that, like, just to teach guitar, not even for money, I just want the kid to come back and be hungry for more and have developed what I've shown him, That's what I like. And I have some goals set for myself here, and I had a few years where I was just not living right. And I've been living pretty right the last 2.5 years, so if you know what I mean. So that really helped me a lot too, get my stuff really straightened out, get myself in a better place, and life's really good. I feel overpaid, and I've got some gifts that I need to give to other musicians that are working the way along the way, and I only get the gifts, by giving them away, and that's where when I was hit up to do this transcription, and I'm like, this guy's like my biggest fan. Like, I gotta fucking do this for him, and I literally delivered it to him like right before Christmas, and I was like, I just gotta write this out for Brian. I spent hours and hours, like, what the heck did I do here? What did I do there? And if you listen to Misty on the first CD, it's pretty rad, man. And and that really made me feel like this is I get it now. This is what I need to do.
That was Darren Housholder, and this is the track Misty he was talking about. Holy hell. Okay, I'll play a few more seconds and then I'll kick into another song I really like. This one is called Stand Your Ground. Much like Joey Tafoya, I think you can expect to see a lot more of Darren in the next little while. I hope you guys like this one because I really do like talking to these Shrapnel guys. Okay, next week I'm going to go back to the production side of things with an interview with a fantastic engineer, Tom Size. Tom's worked on almost all the Mr. Big stuff, as well as a bunch of Paul Gilbert and Racer X CDs. And of course a little album called Eat 'em and Smile. You can look for that next week. And if you liked what you heard this week, please leave a 5-star rating on iTunes. And remember to go to thedoublestop.com for all the past episodes. This is episode 88, so there's a lot to go through. I'm coming up on 100 episodes. Wow, can you believe that? I'm going to have to start working on something special for that one. Well, that's it for this week. I'm Brian Sword. Thanks for listening.